Remember the feeling of being a kid, trying to convince your parent/guardian to take you to McDonald's. When finally they agree, you leave the house, get in the car, and drive to McDonald's. At that point, you face a really big decision. Do you get the chicken nugget Happy Meal, or do you get the cheeseburger one? And don't even try and remind me of the other Happy Meal options. No one but a psycho child is going to choose the McFish or whatever the equivalent at that time was. I really, really don't trust that thing. Anyway, now that we're adults, rent is high, groceries are high, and the wages feel really low. And now, McDonald's seems to be selling Happy Meals to adults that come with toys. I don't really think any of us imagined adulthood being like this. When we were kids, like the idea of being an adult looked really stable. You grow up, you get a job, you move out of your parents' house, you decorate your new place with whatever your chosen aesthetic is. Maybe you get like a dog or something, or like a hamster, and then you get like a strange lamp. But that doesn't matter because it's your lamp that you brought with your adult money. And that was the deal, right? You work hard, and as a result, you get your independence. But for a lot of Gen Z, it doesn't really feel like that's the way it's working out. Okay, let's think about this again. Finish school and you get a job. So, step one, what happened to it? Because the first step was supposed to be simple. You worked hard at school and you graduated, and then you get hired. But now you have to have like 3 years of experience for like working at Starbucks. And degree level jobs seem to barely cover rent for the cities they're based in. You apply for so many jobs and no one even replies to you. And I know that every generation has their specific struggles, and I'm not blaming anyone for this, but this struggle feels different for some reason. Okay, now thinking about housing. Even if somehow you're able to get a job, rent is high and the cost of groceries are high and energy bills are also high. And for most people, not all of it is covered by a full-time income. And these are like basic things, so it's not really possible to cut any of them out. You can't just like decide to skip rent one day, and you can't like just completely stop using electricity. You can't really just go and like email your landlord and say, "Hey, I'm actually like doing a low spend month. I hope that's okay with you." None of these things are luxuries, they're just basic needs. And then there's the deposit for renting, because you don't just have to pay the rent every month. You pay the first month's rent, you pay the deposit, and then maybe there's some like agency fees and furniture, and you're like buying cutlery and towels, and you go and buy your lamp, but then you realize, why are lamps so expensive? And suddenly moving out doesn't feel like a milestone. It feels like a mountain that you can't see the top of. And I think what's really strange about this is that it's not about money, it's about our expectation. We were kind of raised thinking adulthood was like a reward. You worked hard, you went through high school, you got through your exams, you gain independence, and you get to build something that's yours. And it might not be like a mansion, but you just like a small flat, it would be yours. But that independence keeps getting pushed further and further away. And it creates this really weird in between phase where you're technically an adult, but like you still live at home waiting to move out, and your parents are waiting for you to move out. And like the older generation keeps asking you what you're doing with your life, and you still don't have that strange lamp. So when these bigger things start to feel unattainable, your brain will start to do something interesting. You start to look for smaller wins, not like the huge life achievements like moving out, but the smaller things that in the moment make you feel a little bit better. And you start thinking about the time when you were younger and you didn't have to really think about these things. And that's where nostalgia comes in. When you're a child, you don't feel the financial pressure. It's not something you ever really have to consider. You had no idea how much electricity costed and that you even had to pay for something like that. And you didn't know what rent was, and you had no clue what inflation meant. And the biggest pressure in your life at that time was probably your homework. Or maybe it was deciding to choose between nuggets or a cheeseburger. And when the present feels uncertain, a lot of people instinctively start reaching back to a time that felt easier to deal with. You start rewatching the shows you used to watch, or like playing the games you played as a child. And companies are very good at picking up on these things. So if you're a company like McDonald's and you realize that millions of adults are craving nostalgia, you don't just sell them food, you sell them a memory. And someone at McDonald's had a simple idea. What if we gave adults Happy Meals again? So when companies started realizing that nostalgia was becoming this like strong emotional force, it didn't take very long before they started taking advantage of this. And a lot of brands do this. It's just business. They go where the money lies. But one company that knows how to make a lot of money is McDonald's. Technically, the idea of including toys in an adult meal isn't completely new. They've done kind of similar things, like in 2004, they had the Go Active meal, but instead of a toy, there was like a pedometer and like a fitness guide, which is a bit strange coming from McDonald's. And understandably, that idea didn't really stick, so they just let it go. But fast forward to today, things have changed a lot. Now, nostalgia has become one of the most powerful marketing tools. And one really good example of nostalgia marketing is the Minecraft movie meal. In 2025, McDonald's released a special promotion tied to the release of the Minecraft movie. And on the surface, it looked like what McDonald's always does: capitalize off of a new movie by releasing a meal. But this isn't like when, like a children's movie comes out and they like release a Happy Meal for it. You could order an adult sized meal, the same that you usually would with like a Big Mac or something, and instead of your regular adult meal, it included something else, a collectible toy. And they weren't just randomly picked toys either. They were Minecraft style versions of the classic McDonald's characters, which means they're not just hitting one nostalgic thing. They were targeting both people who loved and grew up playing Minecraft and those who grew up with the original McDonald's characters. And even I brought into this. I was so excited to get the Grimace Ender Dragon egg, and it was so ridiculous, but it worked so well. And it didn't just come with a toy, but it also came with like a code that unlocked a skin in Minecraft. And everything about this meal was exciting. I loved the packaging, and I I even kept some of it and put it in my scrapbook, which maybe that's a bit sad to be doing, but I was so excited. It was so cute, and this seemed to be the perfect Gen Z meal. So we can see that this meal was clearly targeted for Gen Z. But what about the other generations? Could McDonald's pull off making a meal targeting the older generations? Recently, McDonald's released another adult meal that came with toys, the Friends meal. And obviously, everyone knows what Friends is. And even if you never watched this show, you're still aware of it and the cultural impact it had, especially on Gen X and millennials. McDonald's wanted a franchise that would get the attention of these two generations, and they picked the absolute perfect one. So instead of toys aimed at kids, you get like kind of like a Funko Pop type collectible from the characters of the show. And I think this is a really good example of McDonald's taking something that people already had a strong emotional and like nostalgic attachment to, and they just like capitalized off of it. And it's even stronger considering the blind box nature of these two meals. And it was kind of similar to Happy Meals in that way. You didn't know what toy you were going to get until you like opened it. So it makes you want to like return repeatedly and collect all the toys. Okay, let's take a step back for a second. When you look at the bigger picture, you get to see something. These companies aren't trying to sell a product. Well, they are, but they're trying to sell a product by selling a feeling. When you're a kid, going to McDonald's was like an exciting event. Like after school, like this is what you were thinking about. Can we go to McDonald's? You got a good meal, but most importantly, you got a toy. And you didn't know what one you were going to get until you opened it. And in that moment, the experience felt so special. But now we're adults. we have to deal with the reality of the world we live in, which is a really expensive reality. Rent is expensive, food is expensive, and the future feels really uncertain for a lot of us. So instead of trying to sell us independence, companies sell us nostalgia, and they sell us, the idea of remembering when things were easier, when life was much simpler for us. And McDonald's seems to understand this better than most companies. Whether it's the Minecraft meals aimed at Gen Z or the Friends meals aimed at the older generations, the strategy is the exact same. Finding something that people already have an emotional connection to, put it in a box, and sell a memory back to them. And to be honest, I think it seems to be working. I mean, I brought into it. In a world where things are stressful and unpredictable, opening a box and finding like silly plastic toys inside seems strangely comforting. And maybe that's why adults are buying Happy Meals again. Not because we want toys, but because for a moment it feels like being a kid again. So, what's your favorite fast food collaboration you've seen? I'm most familiar with McDonald's. I'm not really sure if any other like relevant fast food places are leaning into these ideas. And the not so relevant ones, I swear those ones are kind of like a money laundering scheme or something. Allegedly.